Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of the vikingage.com. We do this every Monday and Thursday night at 6:15 p.m. Central Time right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. If you miss it, we got you covered the next day on Apple Music and Spotify. But however you're listening, make sure you're liking, subscribing, giving us a good review because we never want you to miss a new episode. My name is Chris Schad. I'm a contributor for the Viking Age and a slew of other websites. I am joined by my co-host, the managing editor of the vikingage.com, Adam Patrick. And today we are having our second Rewatchables episode where we hop in the DeLorean and we watch an entertaining moment in Vikings history. Most of them have been good. Actually, this is our second, so they've both been good. But some of them, maybe we'll try and, rip open the wounds, rip off the Band-Aid or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. In our first episode, we talked about the Minneapolis Miracle, which was, of course, Case Keenum to Stephon Diggs. Today, we're going to go look at another famous pass in Vikings history with Brett Favre's 2009 bomb to Greg Lewis. So before we get started, I feel like this game needs a lot of backstory because this 2009 season was so freaking interesting in that it was 2 years in the making. Brett Favre obviously forced his way out of the Packers. They traded him to the Jets. He looks terrible over there because he tore his bicep. Then he's like, I'm going to retire. Gets out of his contract. He goes, LOL, I want to go to Minnesota. They pick him up, everything. So, I mean, what do you remember about the 2009 season? Were you excited to get Favre? Were you kind of tentative? Like, what was your thought on it?
Oh, I was excited for sure, because he was only 2 years removed from helping the Packers get to the NFC Championship. And yeah, maybe his play was declining with age, but I feel like we all knew he was going to be extra motivated if he was going to be with the Vikings and you get to go against the Packers and go back to Lambeau and kind of have a chip on his shoulder. Where he was with the Jets, he probably had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, but he's just kind of there. Where I feel like with the Vikings, he just had like this extra motivation. He was also around some guys that he knew, like Daryl Bevel and Ryan Longwell, and a couple other guys that he's been friends with over the years. So he was more familiar with the Vikings. Obviously, he played against them in the NFC North and Central. So I was super pumped to get Brett Favre. I mean, I was super pumped when the Vikings got Donovan McNabb. So uh, to say that I was excited about them getting Favre was, yeah. And then, the way the season started, them getting off, I think they started 6-0 or 5-0. It was just a fun year, and it ended in typical Brett Favre fashion. So, and Vikings fashion, I guess. So, yeah, I was definitely excited to see Brett Favre put on the purple and gold.
That was a fun summer. I mean, the whole season in general was just a blast. Personally, I had just moved in with some new roommates in college for my, I believe that would have been my super senior year of college. So, I mean, all these guys, it was quite the collection when it came to football because we had Vikings fans, Bears fans, and Packers fans in the same house. And like the whole time,
No
one of
Lions?
my friends, no Lions fans, shockingly. I don't know. They're kind of harder to find. I remember working at a newspaper down here, and one of the Detroit Lions reporters, Dina Trotman, who's now at one of the big stations in Detroit. I can't remember the exact call letters right now, but she's a big deal over there, covers the Lions. But she was a Lions fan, and like I was just amazed. I'm like, I know somebody who's a Lions fan now. My football life is almost complete if the Vikings would just win a Super Bowl. But that summer, one of my friends, Jerry, was a big, Brett Favre fan because he grew up in Thorpe, Wisconsin, was a Packers fan. And then I think his like in-law or something was like, no, the Vikings are cool. You got to cheer for these guys. It's way more fun. And he's like, okay. So now he's like one of God's most pathetic creatures. And he's like, I'm like, I don't know about Favre. He didn't look too good with the Jets. Everything was going off. And then Jerry's just like, dude, trust me, you want him on your team. Like it's Brett Favre. So one morning I wake up, 300-pound Chris, and I'm in the bathroom and I check my flip phone and it's just like 6 texts from Jerry. Just like, oh my God, Brett Favre's coming. He's in a helicopter. Like, you got to get up here. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And it was like, 11 in the morning. I'm like, Jerry, I'm trying to sleep in. And I go upstairs and like, sure enough, there it is. Like Brett Favre on the interstate, cruising with the helicopter and everything. And like from that point on, when I was watching this game, I was thinking to myself, there are so many games that we could have chose for this. And maybe there's another game that we will choose. I mean, the next week, Brett plays the Packers in the Metrodome. Later in the season, he goes to Lambeau, as you mentioned. The Ravens game where Justin Tucker misses a field goal at the end of regulation to win that game. Kicking the crap out of Dallas, losing in Chicago in overtime. That was a banger of a game. The NFC Championship game, if we remove our, emotional attachment to it, very good game from a pure football standpoint. The whole year was just so much fun. And it was a blast just to like, I remember watching this game and there was a clip where there was a Viking fan in a Vikings Favre jersey, and then a Packer fan in a Packer Favre jersey, and they're getting along. Like they're just having the time of their life. It was just so surreal and so weird. And I honestly, with all due respect to 2017, which was a blast, I think 2009 was the most fun I've ever had during a Viking season. 98 you could make a case for, but I mean,
we were younger, so maybe
yes,
if we were older it might have been more fun. But 2009 was super fun. Like you mentioned, it was just like as soon as he got there, I think he had like, it looked like he came straight from the farm. He had like his like dirty shirt on, like dirty hat on in the press conference, like, I'm here.
He somehow had a dirty Vikings hat despite never putting it on. That was impressive. Like they just rolled it through a mud field or something before he got on the plane.
Can you drag this outside a little bit? I need it.
I gotta bring this hat outside. This ain't gonna work real well in a press conference. Come on now.
But as as Vikings fans, we've seen him so many times go into Minnesota or in Lambeau, just break Vikings hearts. You go back to the Monday night Antonio Freeman game. There's that one. He was involved in the Randy Moss debut game. He was involved in the Shoot the Moon playoff game. Like he's a part of a lot of Vikings moments as much as the Vikings are. So it was just cool to see him. And then which is always the case. We're getting this with Zadarius Smith now, but it makes it that much sweeter to get a player that was good or is still good who used to play for the Packers. Because even though they'll be like, they'll try and play it off and be like, he's past his prime. Oh, have fun with him. He's not going to do anything. That that deep inside, they're hurting a little bit and they're jealous. They're jealous that this player picked the Vikings over the Packers, and that just makes everything so much sweeter.
He could, all they had to do was rework their contract, little cap fit gymnastics. You're already paying Aaron Rodgers with a little cap gymnastics.
Well, why not? And we mentioned the Jets season. I feel like he got hurt. Like he was off to a good start with the Jets. I feel like
he hurt his bicep.
Yeah, and he got hurt.
Tore it.
That's why he kind of had a bad second half. But if he didn't hurt himself, he might have had a 2009 season with the Jets. So we don't know. And then 2010 is just we don't need to talk about that.
Well, let's talk about this game instead, because it was quite the interesting game to look at and just see the players that were involved.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, first play of the game, Jared Allen gets a strip sack and sacks starting cornerback Sean Hill, who beat out Alex Smith in a training camp competition. By the way, their coach is Mike Singletary, who's on the sideline looking like he wants to rip somebody's head off. I honestly got like last year's Vikings vibe watching the 49ers in this game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because it looked like nobody was having fun. The head coach, like Delaney Walker, tripped on a play and like he was all in his face.
Chewing him out. Yeah.
Yeah. Just destroying him. But I mean, it was just weird to watch. But when it comes to Jared Allen, first of all, Jared Allen, in my mind, should be a Hall of Famer. I think he's like 4th or 5th all time in sacks. But like everybody ahead of him's like in the Hall of Fame already or going to be in the Hall of Fame.
He'll get it.
And
he's been a finalist, I think, the last 2 years.
And Ben Lieber called him their version of John Randall just because of his ability to trash talk and his ability on the field. He wound up with 14 and a half sacks that season. Do you know who was first?
Gotta be Ray Edwards, right?
It was not in the league. I'm sorry. I forgot to
okay.
in the NFL. Sorry.
In the league.
Ray Edwards did not
is it?
go.
What year? 2009? Was
2009.
it Jason Taylor?
It is not Jason Taylor.
Okay. Who was it?
This is quite the pull.
Was it like Elvis Dumervil?
There you go. You got it.
Yeah.
Baltimore's Elvis Dumervil, who I believe tried to sign somewhere else. And then like his contract got caught in a fax machine or something, and it didn't go through. Used to order Chipotle burritos on a fax machine, and then
wow.
Yeah, we did it as like the radio station, then the newspaper did, and Chipotle got really mad because they're like, hey, we'll give you it for free if you fax it. And like us college kids are like, hell yeah. Of course we're gonna tell every college kid, hey, we just got free Chipotle. All you have to do is fax it, and then they got mad at us. So.
Fax.
That's how old we are.
Wow.
But here's the other thing. So like everybody talks about the 09 offense because you had Brett Favre, you had Percy Harvin, you had Adrian Peterson, you had an offensive line that we'll talk about in a little bit here. But the defense was just as good. They were 10th in points allowed, 6th in yards allowed. Do you think people forget how good this defense was?
Oh, for sure. I think there's a lot of playmakers, a lot of future Ring of Honor guys, future Hall of Famers on there. You could even make the case that Kevin Williams should be a Hall of Famer because I believe he was a 6 or 7-time All-Pro, which not a lot of Hall of Famers can even say. Then you have Antoine Winfield, who is just probably one of the most underrated players in NFL history. You mentioned Jared Allen, and you got Chad Greenway in there, who's definitely going to be like Ring of Honor guy or whatever. And there's just playmakers all over the field. And you even had on special teams, you had like Heath Farwell, and guys like that. But yeah, the defense was good. You could tell. So there was some moments it did resemble like the Vikings defense kind of 2017, because specifically in this game, they were very good on third down. I think the 49ers didn't even get a third down conversion. And then, the Vikings would give up like the big chunk plays on like second down or fourth down or whatever. I'm like, oh, that looks familiar. So yeah, there's that, but they were good. Yeah. And Leslie Frazier was the defensive coordinator for them. So, he was just getting ready to be a head coach soon. So yeah, they were good.
Waiting in the wings behind Brad Childress. it was quite impressive. I mean,
was it Did he put Singletary on his staff? Did he put him on there after he got hired?
He was there maybe after San Fran. I think Frazier did. Because they were teammates in 1985.
They were drafted the same year for the Bears too.
Yeah. So there's your.
I think so. He might have been like a linebackers coach or like a senior defensive assistant or something like that.
He wasn't a very good coach. I remember, and I remember looking at it going into the year, just going like, oh yeah, they got Singletary. They signed a lot of veterans too. Like Nate Clemens was on the team.
Oh, yeah.
Josh Morgan was the name I remember. Frank Gore was at his peak. Like the week before, he had like 260 total yards between rushing and receiving. Yeah, Isaac Bruce.
Dre Bly.
The names were pretty big on there. They just weren't a very good football team because they weren't coached real well. And, talking about that secondary, they were the ones who gave up first blood in this game because Brett Favre threw a beautiful touchdown pass through the middle of the field to Sidney Rice. That put Minnesota on the board early. Sidney Rice, we want to talk about name pulls. We were talking about players that didn't live up to their potential. I remember going to training camp when Sidney Rice was drafted. And, in Mankato, you were a little bit closer to the field. So you had all these players, lining up to catch balls from the jug machine. And it just sounded like, you just heard it right off their hands. And Sidney Rice came up, put his hands up, and it just right there.
Quiet.
Just very quiet, soft hands, everything else. And I'm like, this guy might be really good. And sure enough, the first 2 years has Tavares Jackson as his quarterback. I think Gus Frerotte was mixed in there a little bit. Then he gets Brett Favre and he explodes. And I was listening to something today, a Purple Rewind on Score North, where Tom Pelissero was talking about how Sidney Rice was one of the key reasons why Favre was eventually persuaded to come back, even though he didn't want to. And when Rice held out and had the hip injury, he's tried throwing that back shoulder fade, and it just did not work.
Yeah. He was fun to watch. 2009, that year, that was his. Talk about guys like even look at someone like Josh Gordon, who had that one crazy year where he just like went off. That's kind of similar to how Sidney Rice was. Sidney Rice used that year though in 09 to get paid by the Seahawks, and I don't think he ever had a year like he had with 09. Poor guy, he went to Seattle, and Tavares Jackson was his quarterback again, so couldn't really escape him. But yeah, it was fun because it had like a Moss ass like feeling to it. Seeing him go down the field and kind of like just Favre chuck it in the air, and Rice just go up and jump over guys and grab the ball. It was fun to watch, and I think over time he's probably gonna be someone that's probably more forgotten, but he's definitely a very important part of this season for the Vikings for sure. Because without him, I don't know if they get to the NFC Championship.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, you had Percy Harvin, everybody talks about him, but I mean, Rice was the number one receiver on that team and probably their biggest threat. And it's a big reason why Brett Favre turned it on after the first couple of games, because coming into that game, he only had 238 yards passing. This was week 3. He only had 85 yards in a win against Cleveland in week 1.
Yep.
And they asked him before the game in the production meeting, like, well, what do you think about the game manager label? And Brett said, that really chaps my ass. So throughout the game, he didn't look right. Like, it was not Brett Favre. It looked more like Jets Favre, really. And they mentioned the timing. They said, oh, well, Bernard Berrien, he missed camp with a hamstring. They didn't take into
they had no
Bernard
connection
Berrien
in this game.
Yeah, they didn't take into account that Berrien was bad, that he dropped a pass on the final drive, that, they chained him to a locker and made him watch videos of Brad Childress's kick-ass offense until he signed.
He was dropping passes left and right in this game. He had one, I think it was on like might have been the final drive or the drive before that, where he had one catch. I think it was the final drive. Before the first half, actually. I think the final drive before the first half, when they were lined up to kick a field goal. It didn't turn into a field goal. Yeah, Berrien caught a pass and he gained like 30 or 35 yards. And that was like the best play of his game. But I think he had like 2 or 3 drops in the game. They kept talking about how the connection wasn't that good. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. So,
and I think Tim Ryan was the color guy, and he said, there's nothing wrong with Brett Favre's arm.
But he threw like
just hinted at it. Yeah.
I think he threw like 48 times in this game, 45, 48 around there.
Yeah.
He
let it rip, especially towards the end of the game. And the Vikings needed it.
When's the last time we saw that?
Yeah. I think Mike Zimmer might have had a stroke on the sideline. Like Kirk, we're down by 17. We got to run Dalvin more. Coach, that's not going to work. But anyway, you look at that, the offensive line, also a rough day. It wasn't as bad as the current offensive line, but there were some flaws. Bryant McKinney had 33 pressures to lead the team, and he was the left tackle, so that's not really ideal.
During the whole season, though, right?
Yes. Not this game. That'd be incredible. I think he would have been benched at some point. I always remember Bryant McKinney as the guy who literally ripped a stripper pole out of the crowd to beat a bouncer with it in a Miami nightclub, which is funny because it leads me to one of my other training camp stories where I was there in the crowd, and I think Jared Allen was just destroying Bryant McKinney in a practice, and this guy was just heckling McKinney. And he's just screaming at him. He's like, why don't you beat him with a pole, McKinney, you fat sack of crap? Come on, McKinney. Just riding him the entire practice. He's like, you need a pole. So training camp's really good people watching territory.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people talk about wrestling events. You can see some good people at training camp.
Brian McKinney now current contestant on America's Got Talent. Part of
saw that
Players Choir. I had no idea that he sung.
Very smooth.
Got to be the baritone guy in the back there.
I don't think he's the alto. I don't know how it works. Soprano, alto.
Yeah.
Like I took class for music.
He's the
Like
the
the
deep
teacher just let us wrestle all the time and watch wrestling. So
obviously he's the deepest voice guy in there. He had some bass to their choir group. But yeah, he's there, and he's got a podcast too where he talks about the Vikings sometimes.
when I think about Brian McKinney, I definitely think of bass. Like that, if I were to use a musical term. Bill Lodeholt was second with 27 pressures on the season. And this offensive line had a guard. They had Steve Hutchinson, who only allowed 12 pressures on the season.
One guard.
1 yard. And they had Anthony Herrera, and I think Artis Hicks was the other one. But
maybe, yeah. I know Herrera was watching this game. I'm like, oh, they have problems at right guard. It's very surprising to hear that.
The Vikings? No.
Yeah.
Well, Hutch only allowed 12 pressures on the season, but he allowed 4 in this game. And it was a problem because Brett started getting pounded in the turf.
Yeah,
it was almost a precursor of what wound up sinking the Vikings season in New Orleans, really. So as for the game, the Vikings went up 10-0 before Vernon Davis made it a 10-7 game. Ryan Longwell hit a 52-yarder and then lined up for another field goal at the end of the half, but it was blocked and returned by Nate Clemens to give the 49ers a net 14-13 lead at halftime. So I will ask you this question right now. Was this your turning point of the game, or did you have a different one?
I had a different one. At first, because like you said, I think we both said to each other, like, we were both at like similar points in our life. I think I just graduated college. You said you were still in college, and we've both never watched like this whole entire game. So I'm sitting there watching this kind of like it's live for like first time. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, Longwell's going to hit this field goal. Then they block it, and I'm like, oh no. Like I'm watching it in real time. I'm like, wait a minute. So yeah, at first I'm like, oh no. And they blocked it, and yeah, that's a big momentum shifter. I think it could have been, but something else happened later in the game that kind of helped the Vikings get back their momentum. But the 49ers definitely I feel like at first they were kind of just all over the place. I think Frank Gore got hurt on the first play, and that kind of threw them off, like maybe their game plan to try and figure out what to do. But they kind of got settled, started targeting Vernon Davis more, who was a beast in this game. And then they started to get things rolling, made some plays on defense. And yeah, this blocked field goal is a play that you can't give to a team like this. If you're the Vikings, you're up you're up 10-0. You go up to what, 13? Was it 13-7? Okay, you've got pretty good control. You're losing a little bit of momentum. The Niners weren't doing anything on offense. I think they had no yards on their first 4 or 5 drives. But this play, like you hear that, it gives them life, gives them hope. They go into halftime, they're pumped. They're like, all right, we can do this. Because I think they were undefeated going in this game too. They were 2-0, so they were feeling good about themselves. And then, the Vikings were able to regroup and get themselves back together. But yeah, I think if something else didn't happen, which we'll talk about when you go over it, but this is a second contender for turning point. I think it definitely raised my eyebrows.
Yeah, this was mine just because
Yep.
it changed the tone of the game.
Yep.
Like when it was 13-0, I was thinking, I'm like, wow, the Vikings must have really did something stupid. And then right before a half, it's like, oh, there it is. Like you knew, like the Vikings don't make things easy. So when they're up, 10-0, Vernon Davis gets the touchdown. It's 13-7 before the half. It's just like something's going to happen where it's just like, oh no. And that was the field goal, because at that point, you could kind of feel the momentum shift, because the 49ers looked like they were going to get run out of the Metrodome in the first 30 minutes of this game for the most part. And then it changes. The 49ers have the lead, and they go into the second half, and it's 17-13. And then to quote your play, person went 101 yards to the left, to the right, and gone with a Mick Golden light in the shot, which I thought was it was like true nosebleed angle. Got beer in your way and everything else.
And the replay.
The replay, like he's just running, and all of a sudden there's a plastic bottle of Mick Golden light in the front. And I'm like, if I were at the game, I'd put good money on that being mine because the good old nosebleed seats at the Dome, man.
Yeah, that's definitely my turning point because I think the Vikings were a little like, oh man, like this, we're getting beat now. Like, they were kind of struggling on offense too. Like at that point, I think they came out, might have been their first drive of the second half, and it might have been, I think they might have gone 3 and out. And then so they give the ball back to the Niners, and I think the Niners kicked a field goal, and then, so then, Percy Harvin gets the kickoff, and that place erupted. Metrodome. That felt like a wrestling pop as soon as he broke through the first few guys. Like as soon as he was in the middle of the field, he was gone and everyone was freaking out. It reminded me of like how loud the Metrodome can get because it was just all like, can you imagine? Like I know US Bank Stadium gets loud, but can you imagine if the Minneapolis Miracle happened in the Metrodome? Like how much louder it would have been?
It would have been pretty damn loud. I mean, yeah, the Metrodome was so awesome because it was a dump, and when you went in there,
It
like
was
I'd
your
say
dump.
that is an endearing term.
Yeah,
Like
no,
like
yeah.
it was a dump, and I think it was better for football than it was for baseball. Even though the
Definitely.
Twins won two World Series in that
Yeah.
building, but I mean, football, that's what it was mainly built for.
Yeah.
And I mean, sitting in the nosebleeds, like I've seen some things in the back of that
Oh,
Metrodome
yeah.
that
Yeah.
that got some stories, man. And there's probably been some stories in the back of US Bank Stadium too. But I
For
mean,
sure.
it was a lovable place. You went in there, it would get so loud on Sundays, nobody knew what to expect because it was kind of a novelty when they first built it. Then you saw more domes pop up. They got
Mhm.
replaced by kind of your newer stadiums. And I don't know. It's just fond memories of that place. I love US Bank Stadium. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a
Oh, yeah.
million times better than the Dome because I can sneak into areas and watch the game with a nosebleed ticket, which is
Mhm.
amazing.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was something. And I mean, kind of talking about Percy Harvin, you mentioned him as a case of wasted potential when we were talking
Mhm.
last week. I think that rookie season, however, was everything that you could have asked for
Yeah.
from Percy Harvin
Yeah.
because he was a rookie. Brett Favre was there.
Yeah.
He winds up playing with the worm burner Donovan McNabb and the gravedigger Christian Ponder.
Mhm. Mhm.
After that,
Mhm.
it just kind of when we talk about why Harvin's career kind of went south, part of it was scheme, but part of it was the quarterback play. And I think in 2009 that's where we saw peak Percy Harvin, with
Yeah.
all due respect to his 2012 campaign, where, he probably could have contended for an MVP had he not,
Yeah.
gotten banged up.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think this this return was one of my favorite play. I think it was one of the plays where you first started to realize like, oh, Percy Harvin, he's really good. And then I think one of my favorite plays that Percy Harvin had was in Lambeau when he caught it like in between, I think 2 or 3 Packers, and they all just hit each other, and he just ran for the touchdown, which was awesome. Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite players. Uh, favorite Vikings players I've ever watched. Like Stephon Diggs is up there. Like just guys that they just make plays regardless of where they get the ball on the field. They have so much confidence, and it's just fun to watch them out on the field, like just making plays and letting everyone know how good they are because they are good. Uh, and Percy Harvin would get the ball and just ram into people. He didn't care if you were 300 pounds or 180. He's coming at you. He's not going out of bounds. He's going to get more yards. That's probably why his career didn't last as long, but still, he was fun to watch. And yeah, he was just as much as Sidney Rice was. He was a big part of that Vikings 2009 success as well because, and he's another player that the Vikings took a chance on. We've talked about guys that the Vikings have taken a chance on before, Randy Moss, and some other guys, but Percy Harvin is definitely part of that group, and that worked out for a little bit. Did he threw a weight at Leslie Frazier, which is one of the most
Through
outrageous stories I've ever heard of in my life because Leslie Frazier, I feel like he wouldn't hurt a fly. So it's just hilarious that somebody threw a weight at him. But just didn't go well. That and Percy Harvin was also the first. We have no intent of trading him guy before everyone else that Rick Spielman talked about. And then they traded him, and they got a good haul, deservedly so.
Yeah, that trade was, I believe, Xavier Rhodes, a first round pick, and then did they get a third round pick? I can't remember who else was in that deal, but
they got some good stuff for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, Sharif Floyd. I mean, that first round was Sharif Floyd stays healthy, and they know how to use Cordero Patterson. That's a franchise foundation right there.
Yeah.
As far as a trade goes. So the Vikings hold on to the lead in this game. It's what, 2017 at this point?
Yep.
We get down to midway through the fourth quarter, and Vernon Davis catches his second touchdown of the game. And then we get to the final drive eventually. The Vikings offense is kind of stalling. You're not really feeling good. And Greg Lewis had just played just 3 snaps until this pass.
Yeah.
So we'll have fun here. I'll let you go first with your story because I have 2 stories. One of me, one of my parents' friend. So I will let you tell your encounter with the Brett Favre to Greg Lewis pass before we go any further.
Yeah. So it's 2009. I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona at the time, just trying to figure out. I just graduated college, trying to figure out my life, what I'm doing. I was working like some grocery merchandising job or whatever, going around the stores like putting soda on shelves. And it's that time in our lifetime or whatever where there's no red zone, but so ESPN radio is kind of like the red zone before the red zone, where they would go live to different games depending on how good something was going on. And this time, I kept checking the score, so I get back in my car or whatever, and they're playing the clip of like the last play, and I hear I'm like, oh, come on, and Favre throws to Lewis, and they score a touchdown. I'm like in my car like celebrating, and then later on I would go home and watch the replay or whatever. But yeah, that was how I saw it back in the day when I used to have to work on Sundays and not watch football, or not supposed to watch football and get paid for it, but now I get paid to watch football on Sundays. But yeah, I first heard it on the radio. I'm not sure if it was the TV call or the Paul Allen call, but I hope it was a Paul Allen call, because that was the best of the two for sure.
Well, I was working at Hudson Menards, right across the border over in Wisconsin. And I was out in the garden center, probably overwatering some plants or giving somebody too much mulch or giving them the wrong materials for their deck. One of the 3. It was a decade of destruction at that place. But I was in the garden center. I was stocking something, I believe. And I'm just like, I'm going to take a look at the phone and see what I got going on here. So look at the score. And I'm just like,
how'd you have it? Did you have the ESPN like text alerts, or did you have like the ESPN
Yeah, I had
app?
the text alert.
Okay, yeah.
Because they had the app too.
They had it. Well, I think they had like a Verizon app that took like 5 minutes to load.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like today where you just open up the ESPN app and it's right there. No, it's you load it on the internet, or you get text alerts, like,
and it costs
like
like $10 a minute to use it or whatever too.
It was so funny because I remember like when they first came out with text alerts, like I had like a limited text plan. Yeah. So like at the end of the month, like I would have every team like set up so I could like keep track throughout the league and see who was scoring for my fantasy team. And like I would get my cell phone bill and it was like $500. Like, oh, I'm a dumbass. This is awesome. But I looked at it and I'm like, oh man, it's 24-20. Like we're probably gonna lose and whatever. And all of a sudden it dawns on me, dude, we got Brett Favre. I'm like, Tavares Jackson isn't leading this comeback. We got Brett Favre. So I'm like, okay, there's like 2 minutes left in this game. I'm gonna go out. I haven't used my 10-minute break. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna listen to the game for 10 minutes and whatever. The last 2 minutes of that game took forever. First of all. and I'm listening to Paul Allen. So we're already like 30 minutes into this thing as I'm like sitting in my car listening to it because I am not going back into work. We're kind of dead because it's the fall, and also I don't care. I'm a college student working at a part-time job. So anyway, this call, Favre throws the touchdown, and I remember hearing caught, and I like punched my steering wheel, and I punched it so hard
No, no.
that a car alarm went off.
Oh no.
And like I didn't know my car had a car alarm. So I'm in the parking lot trying to figure out how to turn this thing off. I finally figure it out. This whole entire break took 55 minutes. And it was only supposed to be 10 minutes. And I mean, I didn't get paid. I mean, you get paid for the first 10, and then they didn't really care what you did. Like after that, you just weren't getting paid for it. So that was my story. But an even better story was my parents' friend who was at the game. And during the summer, he was playing soccer and he tore his Achilles. So he was on crutches at the game because he was recovering from surgery. He had a walking boot on. He was sitting in the upper deck of the dome and he's watching the game and he's like, okay, I got a torn Achilles. This game's probably over because he's a trained Vikings fan, right? So he's like, I'm going to hobble down the stairs. I'm going to get into the concourse and I'm just going to beat everybody out just because he doesn't want to get trampled or whatever. So he hobbles down the stairs as they're driving. You know, he gets in the thing. And this isn't like US Bank Stadium where it's like wide open concourse.
TV and TV and stuff.
You go into the concourse and it's like you're in a tunnel. So like he finally hobbles his way into the tunnel. And as he's like walking towards the door, he hears the crowd going nuts. So he's like hobbling back. He gets into the entrance and he sees the score and he's like, what happened? And this guy's just like, oh yeah, Brett Favre, you know, and like he's explaining this to me and he just goes, I have never left a game early. And you know what? I will never leave a game early again. And you know what game he didn't leave early? The Minneapolis freaking Miracle.
Yeah.
Because he knew.
You don't do that.
Knew. So there you go. Life lesson learned on this play.
You don't ever leave early. I think since the last few years, whenever I've gone to game, I've stayed as long where like the ushers are like, okay, you guys gotta leave because you've been here like for too long. Because we're just hanging out and chilling. Because I know there's traffic and stuff, and I'm not about to get out there. But I also don't want to be like first out there and miss something that happens. Because I've been in that situation before. And it's like, we're going to beat traffic. And it's like, you never do. There's always traffic because everyone is leaving at the same time. You never beat traffic. So just stay behind, enjoy the atmosphere or whatever. Always do that. But yeah, the Paul Allen call was, I think, I don't know if you're going to ask, but like, was this game the greatest moment for anybody in their careers? And I would argue that this might be Paul Allen's because in a positive way. He's famous for other calls that are more negative, like the NFC Championship and other stuff, and the Blair Walsh call.
Arizona.
Yes, but in a positive way, I think this is probably this is better than the Minneapolis Miracle call for sure.
And that's not his fault again.
Like no. But like it felt so natural and everything, and he's just like, oh my heavens, Greg Lewis, like welcome to Minnesota and all that stuff. And it's just like, I think Sam Rosen on the TV broadcast just like, Greg Lewis, touchdown. I'm like, that's it? That's all you got? You get paid to be on TV to do that?
Sam Rosen was like 80 though at that time. Like he needed like a complete change of blood at halftime. Just like,
is he alive? I don't know.
He's doing Rangers games
still.
He's the voice of the New York Rangers.
How old is he now? He was 80 back then.
I don't know.
But yeah, the Paul Allen call.
I'm gonna look it up now.
I'm doing that right now too. Paul, he's only 74. What?
Oh, okay. Well, he looks like he's 80. I don't know.
Yeah. He's paired with okay. Yeah. So the Paul Allen call was definitely the best, and I think you could definitely argue that was his best positive call of his career. I'm sure he has many others that he would argue are better, but to me personally, I like that one, and I think that was, no offense, I'm not the biggest Paul Allen fan in the world, but I feel like this was at a time too where he was a little bit more tolerable for the majority of the Vikings fan base. So yeah, that was a really good call. and I'll be putting that in the post, the audio version of this podcast for sure.
The throw two by Favre, like
On the
that was the
money.
moment.
On the
That was
money.
the moment where, like, it felt like something special was going to happen with this team. Because like the first two games, like I mentioned, we were kind of like, I don't know, like we'll just right go as far as Adrian will take it. We thought it was going to be like 2012, where Adrian runs for 2,000 yards, he single-handedly wills them to the playoffs. But once he hit that throw, I think that was the moment, like, hey, I can do this. And B, like it was kind of like, okay, I'm the captain now. Like we are going to do what I want for the offense. And like he never consulted with Chili, who, you can say what you want.
Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, but I mean,
the Vikings were not successful in 2009 because of Brad Childress. Okay, he can set his ego aside. They were not successful because of him. He had the playbook, great, but Brett Favre called the plays.
He owes Brett Favre a nice fruit basket, but something tells me he doesn't send it his way. But yeah, he evades the rush. He ducks under a defender. And then, like, you could just tell it's the old, F it, Greg Lewis down there somewhere. I didn't even know if he was like looking for Greg Lewis.
Right.
He's just like, I see a purple dot down there. Yeah. I'm just gonna throw it in his way and see what happens. Because they could get picked off, but at that point in the game, who cares? Yeah. And I think, we have to have our obligatory Kirk Cousins discussion.
He would not make that throw. No way.
He didn't. He was in the same situation last year. And, I got roasted on Twitter for it a little bit because I said, it was a Cleveland game. Same amount of time, same yard line, same down and distance, I believe.
Yeah.
And Kirk chose to throw 2 check down passes, and then he threw one like 5 yards short of the end zone. Mm-hmm. Whereas Brett, he checked down the play before, because he knew, okay, let's get closer. And it was hilarious because he threw a little out route to Bernard Berrien, and it didn't look like he was going to make the sideline. I don't know if the Metrodome crowd was screaming no because it got thrown to Bernard Berrien, or because they thought that he wasn't going to make it to get out of bounds, but probably a combination of both. But the throw, and I think that was the catalyst for things. That's when people bought in. And, the Vikings started 6-1. I mean, we all know how this goes. They finished 12-4. They're second seed in the conference. They obliterate the Cowboys in one of the most fun Vikings playoff games that I can remember. That was the Pat Williams, we roll the windows down with the cranks comment before the game. And then, the Saints game, which, that might be another rewatchables, but
for sure.
Lots of nuggets in here. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. You have something?
No, I was just gonna say, as far as like the Cousins thing, people might come back and be like, "Well, he's thrown Hail Marys before," and yeah, he has. That's totally different situation where the entire defense is in the end zone and not like rushing at you. And this time, Favre, who was getting killed the whole game, like he had to have his shoulder pad put back in his shirt probably 5 or 6 times, some by the referees.
One after the last play,
one after he threw a block on Patrick Willis, which was insane. He's like 40 years old and he's running down the field diving at guys' legs, throwing blocks. And I think the color commentator is like, Childress gonna have a talk with him. I'm like, oh yeah, good luck with that. Telling Brett Favre.
Brett cares?
No, but it was just funny. I'm like, there he is. He's going down the field. But yeah, Cousins doesn't make that throw. Not a lot of guys make that throw. Like we compare a lot of people to like the legends or whatever, Brady and Favre and stuff. But there's a reason why they're legends, because they make plays that other people don't make. And this throw, like as much as it looked like Favre chucking it to whoever, it was on the money in a place where only Greg Lewis could get it, and only Greg Lewis, and he got it. He did the toe drag swag, and he got that. Do you think this was Greg Lewis's greatest moment in his career? Because he did catch a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but I feel like but they lost Super Bowl when he was with the Eagles, but I feel like this was more fulfilling. What do you think?
I mean, catching a touchdown in the Super Bowl is pretty cool.
But I mean,
I don't remember that he caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Right.
So, I mean, I remember that he caught a pass from Brett Favre. Like, it's one of the coolest throws I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't think we know who Greg Lewis is if not for this catch.
162 snaps on the season for Greg Lewis.
Yeah, would he have 8
So he
catches?
didn't get out there much.
The
Huh?
whole year. I think he had 8 catches the whole year. This was only
Yeah.
his only touchdown as a Viking. This was the only one.
Gone and
pretty good touchdown to
Blink
have.
of
If
an
you're gonna
eye.
have one, if you're gonna have one touchdown, this is a pretty good one to have.
So let's bring out some random research and facts. I got 4 of them. That was one of them. That Greg Lewis only played 162 snaps on the season.
There you go.
This was the first 300-yard passing game by a Vikings player in 64 games. There were 3 Maryland players in this game.
Yep.
Can you name them?
Vernon Davis, Sean
That's
Hill.
one.
I don't think I know the third one. Are they all on the same team?
They are not.
Oh, EJ Henderson.
There you go.
There you go.
Vernon Davis, Sean Hill, EJ Henderson.
Maryland powerhouse.
I was surprised you got the third one. Well, you got the first 2 on the Niners, which I think Vernon Davis is really easy.
Yeah.
Sean Hill, I think people know, like, you know, any football fan's gonna have like a night where they're buddies, where they have like a bottle in the middle and be like, all right, we're gonna name backup quarterbacks, and like when you can't think of one, you're gonna drink out of that.
Mm-hmm,
2 hours later, you're all just hammered. Here's the last stat. Brett Favre was one of 2 Viking quarterbacks to throw for at least 4,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 7 or less interceptions in a season. Can you name the other QB and what season he did it?
I think it's Kirk Cousins. And was it 2020?
Kirk Cousins last year.
Oh, last year. Okay.
Kirk had 4,000, or it was like 4,221. I don't have the exact yardage in front of me, but 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So what are we complaining about? I mean, look at his stats, right?
Well, yeah, it's the same kind of football that was played, because you could clearly tell in this game that things were a lot more physical. I'm pretty sure I saw Adrian Peterson get tackled by the head and slammed to the ground, and no flags were called. There was plenty of guys just like ramming Brett Favre to the ground. I think there was a taunting call in this game. Did you see that?
There was.
It was a terrible call, but it was still a taunting call, and I'm like, wait a minute, I thought these didn't happen back then, but it happened. It was a terrible call. Yeah, there was this was a lot more physical than like, and this wasn't that long ago. This is what, 12 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. But football, you can tell, like, it's as safe as football is in general. Like, it's way more safer now than it was back then.
I remember when EJ Henderson dislocated all of his toes trying to get on Jacked Up. Like, if you want to see something fun, go back like on YouTube and look up Jacked Up, because that is like amazing. Like, people like don't know where the hell they are, like concussed, and they're just like, look at this guy right here, he doesn't even know his name, like laughing about it. Just like, that was football back then.
And I think I noticed when guys would get like their bell rung in the sideline, they would just go to the sideline. And Eric Sugarman would just like talk to him for a few minutes, then they'd be good. Go back in the game. You're good.
Give him some smelling
Like
salts.
Sugarman was like, he was hanging around everybody in this game. He was around Favre, like just hanging with him and stuff. I'm like, now that the stuff that we know about him now, I'm like, oh geez. I got some random facts for you too. This also won the ESPY for best play, just like the Minneapolis Miracle that year. You mentioned Alex Smith. He was on the bench because he lost the battle to Sean Hill. That was a intense battle, obviously. Vikings were favored by 7 in this game. Michael Crabtree was on the Niners, but he was a rookie, but he wasn't signed to his contract yet before this game. He signed it in October because he was having a dispute or whatever. So that could have been a difference maker for sure if he was on the field. And then Alex Boone was on the 49ers practice squad in this game.
Did you know that Toby Gerhart had a contract holdout before he came into the NFL?
With the Vikings?
Yeah.
Toby Gerhart?
Toby Gerhart.
God.
He was 2 days late for training camp.
What was that? Was this before the rookies? Like, because wasn't Sam Bradford like the last rookie wage
Yep.
scale quarterback, and that was what? Was that 2010?
I think a little bit later.
Was it
Maybe that
12?
was 2010. Maybe 12.
Yeah, but yeah, he was the last one. So yeah, a lot of these
Because
guys were trying
Stafford
to.
was the first one with the scale, I believe.
Yeah, because
Or was that?
no, Bradford.
I don't know.
The year after Bradford was
Okay. Cam.
because yeah, Cam
Yeah,
Newton
because
was. Yeah,
Cam was 2012 because he was the Ponder draft.
Cam was 2011 and Bradford was 2010. Yeah, so 2010 was the last year that you could you're a rookie and you could actually still negotiate your contract, which is insane because you're a rookie and you've never played in the NFL and you're trying to be like, well, I'm worth this much money, and it's like, no, you're worth whatever we give you. But that's hilarious, Toby Gerhart. Some nerve he's got. And a lot of these players, we blame them for holding out or whatever. A lot of the time, it's their agent. Their agent who's like,
Yeah.
no, you deserve more. You deserve more. And they're like, but I just want to play. And they're like, no. You need more money. It's like, but I want to play.
I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers' agent from the State Farm
Well,
commercials.
yeah.
Agent McAgenson. He was
look,
he was a problem. He was taking a dump and lighting the house on fire with a candle.
look at
I would have fired my agent on the spot. Why are you
mean-
taking a dump in my house? First of all.
real life, look at the Dalvin Cook situation when his agent threatened that he was going to hold out into training camp, where you would now get fined if you hold out like $50,000 a day. And Dalvin's like, nah, I think I'm going to show up. I think I'm going to show up.
I'll be good. I'll be
Yeah.
good. Just not going to do anything too much. But all right. Well, that's it. That's our second rewatchable episode. That's all the time we got for today. Again, we do this every Monday and Thursday, 6:15 p.m. Central Time. Like, comment, share, ring the bell, do all those cool YouTube things so you never miss a new episode. And if you do, we're on Apple Podcast and Spotify the following day. So for Adam Patrick, I am Chris Schad. We'll see you on Thursday.